I think what's happening provides a big sense of urgency or exclamation point on the importance of fielding commercial technology. We're seeing autonomous systems, commercial satellite imagery, secure tactical communication. We're seeing commercial technologies that can be applied today changing warfare. So we're watching a 20th century industrialized force that Russia has built be challenged and we hope defeated by a more agile force. I mean, Ukrainians are doing a fantastic job in terms of their morale and pulling together a national resistance, but the technology they're using is commercial and they're using more modern methods than the Russians are. So a good example would be commercial satellite imagery. This has allowed the US intelligence community, who correctly identified what was going to happen and told the world that, we could then share that with our allies and partners and the media. So the whole world could see Putin's lies as they unfolded. So this is a game changer. The amount of proliferation of commercial satellites that give us that synthetic aperture radar imaging for us to be able to see what's happening in the world. You can't hide if you're a lying authoritarian power like Russia anymore. The world sees it in real time. So this is a game changer. More commercial technologies are going to be changing the game. Look what's happening with the the autonomous systems that are destroying Russian tanks, as an example. We need to be fielding more of these, the agile, the lower cost weapons that really are going to put the, yesterday's weapons at risk.
And I want to hear from Stephanie on this too, but before we do, can you talk about what that means? Like, how does it manifest itself? Are there conversations saying, hey, we need to put more money toward commercial satellite imagery or unmanned systems, or are there different mechanisms to say, hey, this is something that is going to be a priority, we need to plan for different contract vehicles in the future? I'm just trying to see how this plays out.
Those conversations are happening. I think this illustrates how important and urgent those changes are. And what we're seeing is, and we can talk about this later, a big topic in and of itself, our system is not geared to rapidly make changes. And that's largely how fast can we move money to the areas where it's needed. Whole separate topic we can come back to.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Don't worry.
Okay.
Great. Stephanie.
Sure. Well, so I completely agree with Mike. I'm going to sort of make three quick points. One is, of course, everybody in the DoD, if there is something that we have that's available or could be quickly accelerated of immediate benefit, those questions are asked, answered, and kind of dealt with. So we don't just step back and say, we look at the future, don't talk to us. So everybody is all in wherever appropriate. Second, I'm going to point out that a lot of the things that we were talking about that are being of use are things that DARPA invested in at different points in the past. So we, for example, are responsible for Javelin missiles, which have played obviously a fairly significant role, and unmanned airborne vehicles, things like that. So that's kind of useful for us to be able to see what kinds of investments we made in the past have really been beneficial today. That helps us think about what we might be doing right or wrong. And then the most interesting thing about all of this is that because we do live in the future, what's happening in Ukraine is a really good test for us to look at the programs that we have and say, if these had been ready today, what difference would they have been made? And are we in fact on the right track, or do we need to make changes? So that's kind of the DARPA perspective.
Can you elaborate on something, a program like Javelin, and what that means for how the conversation changes either within the Pentagon or with Congress, or even within your headquarters? Like, what do you say besides, like, yes, this worked, but how do you kind of pull lessons learned from that?
Well, where it tends to allow us to think has to do with how something like Javelin very specifically would be more tied to the variable kinds of uses that you might be able to put something to. Is something very niche oriented, or did you design it for something that ultimately can have multiple purposes and multiple uses? And so what scenarios were originally envisioned relative to what scenarios are being put to use today. And then similarly, we look at current programs and say, what are we currently thinking they might be used for? And how does what's happening in Ukraine change our thought process on whether or not those investments are appropriate, or whether, as you were originally asking, we need to double down on a different area, or we need to think a little bit more creatively.
Are there areas that in the last 6 or 8 weeks you guys have said, hey, we need to double down in specific areas, or you've said, hey, we need to rethink how this might work? And it's too early to go into specifics, I understand, but I guess I'm asking just broadly if there are areas that's happened.
Well, so obviously, there'll be a historical assessment, at some point in time.
Sure.
And I think the harder problem is that a lot of the things that might be happening are things I really can't talk about in this kind of a forum. What I can say is that there are a number of sort of warfighting constructs that we have been working on for the last couple of years across the entire department. So not just DARPA, but in concert with all of the services, where we can readily say, if the things that we were trying to get done 5 years from now were ready today, we believe they would have made a significant difference.
Okay.
So in some ways it hasn't changed our minds, but in the areas that were most important to us, I think it's reinforced for us that we just need to move more quickly.